Good morning, all of you. In this session, let us start exception handling concept in Python. So, what is an exception? You might have seen this exception handling already in C++ and Java. So, because they are object oriented programming languages, most of the object oriented programming languages support exception handling. So, C++ and Java also support exception handling. As such, because Python is also is an object oriented programming language, so it also supports exception handling. So first of all, let us know what is an exception. An exception is nothing but an abnormal condition that occurs during the execution of a program. So when you are running the program, when you are executing the program, you might you might come across an abnormal condition due to which the program terminates. So such a situation is called as an exception, or simply you can also call it as an error in Python context. So whenever an exception or error occurs, what will happen to the program is the program terminates abnormally. Terminate abnormally means without completely executing the program will terminate. So normal termination is what, once all the statements that you have written in your program has been completed execution, then the program terminates. But because when an exception occurs somewhere, if the exception occurs in the middle of your program, say for example your program has 10 lines of code, and somewhere in fifth line of your code if an exception or an error occurs, then the remaining 5 lines of code which are there after the fifth line will not be executed and the program gets terminated. So that is called as abnormal termination. Successful termination or normal termination is uh, terminating the program after executing each and every statement in your program. Then that is called as normal termination or uh, successful termination of program. But if the program terminates without completely executing the program, that is the number of lines you have written in that program, then we say it is an abnormal termination. So when this abnormal termination occurs, when an exception or an error occurs in your program, then the program will terminate abnormally. So this abnormal condition, due to which the program or terminates without completely executing, is called as an exception or an error. So coming to different types of exceptions or errors in a program, we can classify these exceptions or errors into two types. One is syntax errors, the other one is logic errors. So what is a syntax error? Syntax error is nothing but when you don't follow the rules and semantics, syntax and semantics of your program, of your programming language, then there is a possibility of syntax errors to occur in your program. So that means when the syntax errors will occur when you don't have proper knowledge on the programming language. If you're not so good at programming language, that is, you have a very poor understanding of the programming language, then you'll get syntax errors. But coming to logical errors, you know the syntax and semantics of the programming language, but you have poor understanding of the problem that you are solving using that programming language. You know the concept, for example in your Python, we have different constructs. We have functions, we have classes, we have methods, we have file handling, we have lists, tuples, dictionaries. All these are constructs in Python programming, right? So when you know what is a list, you know what is a dictionary, you know what is a tuple, but you know what is a function, you know what is a module, all these things you know. But when you don't have uh, the reality logical thinking in you, logical capability in you, due to which you cannot write the program even though you know the syntax and semantics of programming language, then there will be a chance of occurrence of logical errors, right? So that is why if you look at this third point, they are mentioned here, the sub points in the third point as mentioned. Logic errors occur due to poor understanding of the problem and its solution. If you don't understand the problem and how to give that solution to that problem, then you will come across these logic errors. And syntax errors will arise due to poor understanding of the programming language itself. So to master a programming language, you need two capabilities. You need to have that logical thinking capability, That means you must be in a position to construct a logic for any problem. Say for example, you want to find out the reverse of a number. So Python will not give you any logic for you, even though it provides some predefined functions to find the reverse of a number. If you are asked to construct your own code to reverse a given string, it is your inbuilt capabilities, it is your logical thinking that will make you successful in writing that logic. If you are poor in that logical thinking capability, then you will not be able to give the solution for the problem, right? Even though you are good at programming syntax, you'll not be able to write the program. So logical thinking is one necessity. It is not optional thing, it is necessity. And second necessity is you need to know syntaxes of the programming language. Even though you have logical thinking capability, if you don't know the syntaxes or semantics of programming language, then you will not be able to write any program in that language. So no. So basically you can write an algorithm which is not in any programming language, but you will not be able to write a program in Python or C or Java unless you know the syntax and semantics of these three languages: C, C++, Java, Python, all these things, right? So that is how you can classify uh, exceptions or errors in a program into two types. One is syntax errors, the other one is logic errors, right? So how you can detect these logic errors means by exhaustive debugging and testing of procedures. If it is a syntax error, it will be easy to identify. The programming language itself will generate an error for you when you write the program, right? But logical errors, you will not be able to programming language or the software that you install for the running the Python program will not detect the logical errors for you, right? So you need to exhaustively, that means continuously, you need to run the program with multiple different types of inputs and check the output, and in which case you're getting proper output and in which case you're not getting proper output. You need to do some analysis. It's a very tedious task, and then finally, after spending lot of time, you will be able to identify the logic error that you made in the program, due to which you're not getting the proper output for the program, right? So to avoid this exhaustive debugging and testing of procedures, to some extent, not completely but to some extent, we can come up with a mechanism called exception handling mechanism. Then coming to these exceptions, in another point of view, uh, in this point of view here in the first slide, if you observe, we have classified the exceptions or errors into two types, uh, based on programming language syntax and logical thinking capabilities. In that perspective, we have classified them into syntax errors and logical errors. From another perspective or from another point of view, we can also classify these exceptions or errors into two types, from a different perspective, that is synchronous and asynchronous exceptions. Synchronous exceptions means what? They can be controlled by the program. Synchronous exceptions can be controlled by the program, whereas asynchronous exceptions are caused by the events that are beyond the control of the program. That means it will not be in your hands. Asynchronous exceptions will not be there in your hand. Though you know the syntax of the programming language and you are very good at logic construction and all these things, uh, it will not it will not stop you from generating any exception. Such type of exceptions, we classify them as asynchronous exceptions. For example, any hardware related exception. You are trying to read something from the keyboard, or you are trying to read something from a file, and when you have opened the profile and you are reading some content from the file, at that moment, if that file is deleted by somebody else, assume that the file is shared, it is being used by multiple people simultaneously. Then you are at the time you are accessing, if that file is shared, what will happen? There will be an interrupt for reading of your data from the file. So that will generate an exception there. And suddenly, if your keyboard stops working, you are trying to give input to your program. After running the program is prompting you to enter some input from the keyboard, and suddenly if your keyboard doesn't work properly, then there is a chance of exception to occur. because of the hardware malfunctioning, or even the hard disk is failed. So due to various reasons which are not in our control, we cannot control them in our program, right? They are external to the program. So due to those external entities, if any exception occurs, then we can classify these types of exceptions as asynchronous exceptions. Coming to synchronous exceptions, these will be in our hands. When we write the logic for a problem, we may do some mistakes. Say for example, division by 0, we are performing a division operation, and the division operation involves dividing one variable with another variable, whereas the variables are computed, their values are generated in the previous part of your program, and unfortunately that previous part of the program has generated a 0 value for the denominator variable. Then it is not in your hands, right? So this may occur, but then we can control these exceptions. So for example, divide by 0, array index out of bounds exception, all these exceptions come under synchronous exceptions. So that means we are classifying fundamentally exceptions into two categories. Those exceptions are errors that occur due to poor understanding of the syntax of the programming language. That is one type. And the second type is logical exceptions or errors due to poor understanding of the problem and poor problem solving capabilities. That is one category. So let us now these put that aside. That is a different perspective. The second perspective is whether the exceptions will be within because of our mistakes that we make in logic construction or syntax errors or something, or some exceptions will not depend on us. It will be controlled by some external entities of the program. That means they are external to the program. It may be due to a hardware failure or disk failure, all these things. So in that perspective, we can classify the exceptions into synchronous and asynchronous exceptions. So now that you understood what is an exception and different classifications of exceptions in different perspectives, python in python how exceptions are handled. Just like in Java, exceptions in Python are also represented using objects. In Java, they are represented by classes, and whenever an exception occurs, an object for that particular class will be automatically created. We need not create any object in the program. So generally, how do we create an object for a class in Java? We use the syntax like class name, object name is equal to new operator, and the constructor for the class. So this is how you create an object for a class in Java, right? But for those predefined classes which represent the different types of exceptions in Java, like arithmetic exception, array index out of bounds exception, class not found exception, all these are predefined classes, right? So when that exception occurs in your program, automatically the Java runtime system, what it does is it will create the object for that particular class and throws that object. So we need to put that code only inside the try block, and the catch block will catch that thrown object and handle that exception. So that is how we do in Java, right? So even in Python, these are represented using objects only, just like in Java. So whenever an exception occurs, an object for a particular predefined class type will be automatically created and thrown. Okay, so we can say throwing, instead of using the keyword the term throw, which we normally use in Java, we'll not use the term throw. Instead we'll use the term raise or raising. Okay, so when a program raises an exception, it must handle the exception or the program will be immediately terminated. So if you don't handle that exception, the program will be terminated. So far in our program examples that we have seen in different concepts in Python, we have not used any exception handling mechanism. So that is why what will happen, whenever an exception or an error occurs, the program terminates immediately, and we need to debug the program manually and make the correction in the program and then run it again, so that it will be successfully executed and terminated, right? So we can handle exceptions in our programs to run the programs without changing the flow of program instructions. So means what? the exception handling mechanism in Python will allow you to run the programs without changing the flow of program instruction. What do you mean by flow of program instructions? Your program has some lines of code, and your execution of the program begins at some particular line. So always in Python, a program execution begins with the first line that is written outside of all the classes and functions, right? From there, it will start execution and execute all the instructions in a sequential manner outside of all the classes. And from there, if you make any call to a method of a class or a normal function, then the processor will go to that particular function and execute that code and come back to the previous place from where that function or method is called, and then continue again with the rest of the statements. So this is called as normal flow of execution. So when an exception occurs, what will happen is this normal flow of execution will be disrupted. It will be interrupted. So we don't want that interruption to occur. Instead, we want that normal flow of execution to continue even though an exception occurs. So how we can do means by handling those exceptions. So how Python handles these exceptions? So that we'll see now. So in Python, we use two blocks fundamentally, not just two blocks. We have furthermore blocks, just like in Java, you have try block, catch block, finally block, and though and two keywords like throw keyword, throws keyword. Even Python also provides us with try block, but instead of catch block, you have something called except block, EXEPT. You have the same try block in Python also, but instead of catch block, you'll have except block. So try is a keyword and except is a keyword in Python. Instead of catch, you have except in Python, right? And we'll also have the finally block also. Finally block, which is there in Java, you'll have it even in Python also. So totally altogether you have try block, except block, finally block. And apart from that, we can also have an else block. Just like we have used an else block for loops and if statements, we can also have else block for a exception blocks also. So we'll see that later, but fundamentally to handle the exceptions you'll have try block and except block, right? So what to do with this try block and except block means uh, the piece of code which you feel that this is going to generate or raise an exception or error, you have to put that piece of code inside the try block. Okay, then the except block will have a corresponding exception handling code. So the code which is going to handle that exception that is occurred in the try block will be written inside the except block. So look, if you look at the syntax for the try and except blocks, so this will be the syntax. You will have a try keyword followed by a colon symbol. So you know we need to use a colon symbol whenever you want to start a block of statement, new block of statements, right? We have done it for functions, we have done it for classes, we have done it for if statements, else statements, all these things. So in the same way, even for a try block also, after the try keyword, you need to give a colon symbol, and then within the block, you need to give indentation. So you will write the statement, set of statements in the try block here like this. And after the try block is completed, then below that again you have to use the except keyword for starting the except block. After giving the except keyword, give a space and mention the type of exception that you are going to handle in that except block. If it is in Java, what we do is we write a catch block, and for catch keyword, after the catch keyword you will have two parentheses opened and closed. Within the parentheses you will have an object representing the class which is representing the exception that occurred in the try block, right? But instead of that, what we'll do here is, because Python is directly using objects instead of using classes, we'll have several predefined exception objects. I'll show you the list of all those exception objects that are provided in Python in the next coming slides. So out of those exception object names, you have to mention which exception object you're handling. That exception object name you have to mention here after the except keyword. Give a space and mention that object name, and then give a colon symbol and start the block and give indentation and write the statements in that except block, right? So this is the basic syntax of try and except blocks. So except block is similar to a catch block in Java, right? So you can also have multiple except blocks just like in Java, where you can have multiple catch blocks. So here also you can have multiple except blocks. So how this exception handling mechanism will work, let us see with an example of with a flow chart. So inside your try block, so this exception, this symbol in the first symbol, you are able to see exception raised. If an exception is raised in the try block, if it is yes, then uh, we'll try to find out the exception handler, corresponding exception handler, that is nothing but the except block. And if that is found, then program control is transferred to the handler. So the handler will handle that exception and return back, and the program execution will continue normally. But what if exception does not occur? If there is no exception, then program executes normally, right? And exception is raised, but handler is not found. If the handler is not found, then what will happen? The program is terminated and an error message is displayed. So this is what we were undergoing in all these examples that we have seen so far. So whenever an error occurs in our program, either a syntax error or logical error, whatever error it is, what is happening? Our program gets terminated and we get a error message on the screen, right? So this is what happening. But we don't want that to happen. Instead, we want to handle that exception so that program will continue normally without terminating, and it will terminate only after completely executing the program. So this is how exception handling works. So if exception is raised, yes or no, if it is no, then program will normally complete its execution. There is no problem at all. You'll have a problem only when an exception is raised. So if the exception is raised, then your Python interpreter will check for whether an except block is created or not. If that except block is found, then program control is transferred to the handler, and the handler will handle that exception and return back, and the normal execution of the program will continue after that. But if the exception handler is not found, then the program is terminated and an error message is displayed. So this is how exception handling mechanism works in Python. Okay, so now let me show you various list of exceptions, predefined exceptions that are provided to us in Python. So these are all called as built-in exceptions. So look at this exception. First one is the exception name itself is exception. This is base class for all exceptions. Just like in Java, also you have exception class, right? Which is a base class for all other exceptions. So even in Python also you have a base class, super class, which is uh, a super class for all the other exception classes. Then you have stop iteration. When this stop iteration will work, generated when the next method of an iterator does not point to any object. So I'll tell you what is this next method and what is an iterator after this. Don't worry. So this will exception will occur when the next method of an iterator does not point to any object. Then you have system exit raised by sys.exit function. So we have a function. This also I'll tell you later. Sys.exit function. But we'll see the remaining things, and we'll write some programs also on the remaining few of them, not all of them, because if you have to write programs and all these things, it will take so much time, right? So I'll show you fundamentally how to use this try and except blocks, and you must know when an exception, which type of exception occur, and which type of exception class to be used along with that except block, right? Then you will be able to write the program on your own. But fundamentally you need to know first, practically you need to know how to do it with an example, with some examples. So I'll show you some examples, and then the remaining you can practice. So coming to the next one, standard error. So these are all predefined classes. Just like in Java, we have arithmetic exception class, class not found exception class, null pointer exception class. All these are exception classes, and when an exception occurs, automatically an object for those classes will be created and thrown to the catch block. and using that object you can call a method called print stack trace, which will print the complete exception details and description, right? So in the same way here also we have predefined classes here. The first one is exception, then stop iteration, system exit, standard error, arithmetic error. So standard error is base class for all built-in exceptions excluding stop iteration and system exit. Exception is base class for all the other classes, but coming to standard error, it is a base class for all built-in exceptions except stop iteration and system exit, whereas exception is even base class for stop iteration as well as system exit also, right? Oh, that means what? Exception has two subclasses, three subclasses. One is standard error, uh, second one is stop iteration, and third one is system exit. Standard error will be having subclasses as the remaining other classes that are there below this one, right? So now arithmetic error, overflow error, floating point error, all these classes will be subclass for standard error, and error is again in turn a subclass for exception. So automatically exception will become a superclass for all these classes also, right? But along with standard error, there are two more subclasses for exception class: stop iteration and system exit. So they'll not be subclasses for standard error. So that's the reason why we are mentioning here base class for all built-in exceptions excluding stop iteration and system exit. Okay, so arithmetic error is another class. This is base class for errors that are generated due to mathematical calculations. So you perform any addition operation, subtraction, multiplication, division, all these exceptions, all the exceptions that are generated due to this mathematical calculation will come under this arithmetic error. It is just like arithmetic exception class in Java. Overflow error raised when the maximum limit of a numeric type is exceeded during a calculation. So the memory allocated to a particular variable, based on that memory space allocated, the large value that you can store in that variable depends, which we call it as range of variables, right? So if your range is beyond that range, if the value is beyond that range, then you'll get an overflow error. This will be raised when the maximum limit of a numeric type is exceeded during a calculation. Then floating point error raised when a floating point calculation could not be performed. Zero division error raised when a number is divided by zero. Assertion error raised when the assert statement fails. Attribute error raised when an attribute reference or assignment fails. Attribute means class attributes, variables of a class, class variables, object variables, we call them as attributes, right? End of EOF error. EOF means end of file, raised when an end of file is reached or there is no input for input function. You don't give any input for the input function, then end of file error will occur. Or when you are reading some content or from a file, if the end of file is reached, then this error will be generated. Import error raised when an import statement fails. Keyboard interrupt raised when the user interrupts program execution by pressing Ctrl+C. Lookup error, base class for all lookup errors. Index error raised when an index is not found in a sequence. Okay, sequence means all these lists, tuples, dictionaries, they'll come under sequences. Key error raised when a key is not found in the dictionary. Name error raised when an identifier is not found in local or global namespace. Name error means when you don't create a variable and you try to use that variable somewhere in your program earlier, then you will get that error. Then unbound local error or environmental error raised when an attempt is made to access a local variable in a function or method when no value has been assigned to it. So in this way, these are all the list of errors. IO error raised when an input or output operation fails. Syntax error raised when we'll get this. We have already got this error. Our program got terminated because of syntax error. Somewhere, if you forget to give a colon symbol at the beginning of a block, right? So you'll get syntax error. Indentation error when you don't give indentation for a block at the beginning, then you'll get indentation error. System error raised when an internal system error occurs. this is not in our hands. System error, we have already classified into different types, right? Synchronous and asynchronous errors. So some of these exceptions that you have found now, which are strange for you, will be asynchronous exceptions or errors. Value error, raised when the argument passed to a function are of invalid data type or searching a list for a non-existing value. So when you either search for a list for a value that does not exist in the list, or you are passing an invalid data type or for a function or a method as a parameter. Say for example, you are supposed to pass a list as a parameter, but you are trying to pass a normal variable, then the value error will occur. You are supposed to pass an object of a class as parameter, but you are passing ordinary variable, then value error occurs, right? A runtime error, raised when the generated error does not fail into any of the fall into any of the above category. So till now, whatever errors we have mentioned before this runtime error, uh, if any of the exception occurs but that does not fall in all the above mentioned exception errors, then that will come under this runtime error. Not implemented error, raised when an abstract method, we have already seen this in during abstract methods and classes, right? Raised when an abstract method that needs to be implemented in an inherited class is not implemented. Type error, raised when two or more data types are mixed without coercion. So you have used two variables. One of them you have assigned a floating point value, the other one you have assigned a string or something, some other value, but you are using them together to perform some operation, some addition operation or something, right? So then you'll get a type error. So these are the predefined or built-in exception classes that are provided to you in Python. So whenever we write programs, when we know that there is a possibility of occurrence of any of this category of errors, in the except block you have to mention that errors. Okay. So this is the built-in exception classes, and you can also have multiple except blocks. As I told you earlier, for a single try block there can be a corresponding multiple except blocks. That means if a try block is capable of generating multiple types of exceptions, then we need to define except blocks matching to all those multiple types of exceptions, right? So that's why Python allows you to create multiple except blocks one after the other. You can define them, but only one of them will be executed even though you define multiple except blocks, because once an exception occurs in the try block, the remaining statements in the try block will not be executed. So when the first exception occurs in the try block, uh, after that no other exceptions will occur, because the try block will be skipped soon after the first exception occurs, and the control comes to the exception block, corresponding except block, and the except block will handle that exception, and the program will terminate. So that is what happens. So that's the reason why, even though you mention you define multiple except blocks, only one of those except blocks will be executed, not all the except blocks will be executed. Okay. And one except block will not you can also have multiple try blocks. For each try block there must be corresponding multiple except blocks. So if you have created two except blocks for first try block and two more except blocks for second try block, then if an exception occurs in the first try block, then the except blocks of the first try blocks only will be executed. The except blocks of the second try block will not be executed. So that is the meaning, that is the purpose of the last, that is the meaning of the last sentence, last statement here. Exception handler only handle exceptions that occur in the corresponding try block. That is the meaning of it. Okay. Then if you want to use multiple except blocks, what is the syntax you need to follow? So you'll have a try block, then whatever code you want to put inside the try block, you'll put it inside the try block. Then one except first except block, so the keyword except and followed by exception name 1 and its corresponding handling code. Then similarly next except block, exception type 2 and its handling block. So in that way you can have any number of except blocks. So just like you have multiple except blocks, you can put all these multiple exceptions types into a single except block, so that all the, irrespective of what exception occurs, the only one except block will be handling that all types of exceptions, instead of having multiple exceptions like exceptions like this. For example, you have written a try block here, and inside this try block, for example, there is two types of exceptions possibility. One is type exception, the other one is name error exception, say for example. So what you need to do, in the first except block you have to mention for one exception, that is type error. In second exception you need to mention name error, right? So if type error occurs, then this first except block will be executed. If name error occurs, then the second except block will be executed. So that is how multiple except blocks will work. But instead of using these multiple except blocks like this, you can use only one except block, but within that except block, single except block, you can mention the both the exception types, that is both type error as well as name error exceptions. So how to do that? That is this is a syntax for that. So you will have the single try block, and but coming to the except block, within the parenthesis you need to mention all the multiple types of exception errors that you want to handle by separating them by a comma. After the parenthesis you need to give a colon symbol as usual for a block. Then the code for handling that exception must be given here. Okay, so this is handling multiple exceptions in a single except block, and previously this one is handling multiple exceptions in multiple different except blocks. Then the next thing is, you can have an except block without an exception name. So if you observe the syntax here, so there is a try block, and then one first except block with exception name 1, second except block with exception name 2. But if you observe the third except block, after the except keyword you don't have the exception name mentioned here. So that is the meaning of except block without exception name. So Python allows you to create an except block without an exception name for it, right? So how this except block will be executed, when an exception occurs in the try block, if that first except block is matching with that exception, then this first except block will be executed. If this is not matching, then it will search for the second one. If this is matching, then this second except block will be executed. If both of them are not matching, then by default this will be executed. So that means an except block without a name is nothing but a default except block. If none of the except blocks are matching with the exception that occurred in the try block, then the last except block without the name will be executed. So that is the purpose of this except block without exception name. Then as I told you earlier, you can also use an else clause with the except block, try except block. So this is how you need to use. So try block you'll have as usual, and you also will have an except block. After all, if there are multiple except blocks, you have to write this else block after all the except blocks. You cannot write the else block in between one except block and another except block, right? So after all the except blocks are completed, then you can give this else block. So when this else block will be executed, if there is no exception occurred in the try block, then this else block will be executed. If an exception occurs, then the corresponding except block will be executed, right? That is the purpose of else block. Earlier, when you don't have else block, what will happen? If an exception occurs, then any of those except blocks will be executed. If exception does not occur, then there will be normal program statements which will be there after the except blocks, they will be executed. But here, before those normal programs which are after the except blocks, this else block will be executed, and then after that the normal statements which are there after the except blocks will be executed, and this will be done only when no exception occurs. If exception occurs, then this else block will never be executed. Okay. uh, then coming finally block. So what is the purpose of finally block? You can create a finally block just like else block. You can create a finally block also. but this finally block also must be after the except block only. And if there is a finally block, then that finally block will be executed irrespective of whether an exception occurs or not. Else block will execute if an exception does not occur. If it occurs, else block will not be executed. But coming to finally block will definitely be executed irrespective of whether an exception occurs or not. So what is the purpose of this means? For example, your program will be terminated, right? You have written some code in the try block wherein you are opening a file, uh, and when you are reading the file, uh, if some input error occurs, IO error occurs, then the remaining statements in the try block will not be executed. But in that remaining statement, I have a closing statement of the file, that is f dot close. So the close function will not be executed. As a result, the file will not be closed. It will still remain be open. So if there is any such kind of resource that is opened in the try block, and because of an occurrence of an exception in the try block, that code will not be executed. As a result, the resource will be open and it will be vulnerable in the memory. So if you want to close that, what you can do is you can write that closing code inside the finally block instead of writing that code inside the try block. So what will happen, no matter whether an exception occurred or not, the finally block will be executed. As a result, the closing of resource code will be also executed. So you'll not have any problem. So that is the purpose of the finally block. Okay. Then raising exceptions without automatically being generated in your program. So there are two ways in which you can raise an exception. Even that is the case even in Java also. So I told you already, raise keyword will be used similar to that of a throw keyword in Java, right? So what is the purpose of throw keyword in Java? Throw keyword, without you writing a code in your program which performs some calculation and due to which some exception occurs, you can automatically throw an exception. For example, zero division error. So when this zero division error occurs, only when I perform a division operation, and in that division operation the denominator value is 0, then this exception will occur. But even without I writing a code which contains this division operation, directly I can throw a division by 0 exception by using the throw keyword. What I need to do is I need to use a throw keyword followed by create an instance for the predefined class for division by 0, that is arithmetic exception. Then automatically that exception will be uh, object will be created and thrown, even though you didn't write it manually in your program for performing that operation, and due to that operation it is supposed to be generated. But instead of writing that code, you can directly generate an exception of any type you want using the throw keyword in Java. So similarly in Python also, the raise keyword will allow you to throw any type of exception without you explicitly writing the code for generating that exception, right? So we can deliberately explicitly raise an exception using the raise keyword. So look at the syntax. The syntax is raise followed by what type of exception you want to raise, that class name, the built-in class name list we have already seen, right? So that class name you have to write here, and you have to put this statement inside the try block. Then the corresponding except block must have a corresponding name. So you can also raise multiple exceptions in using a single raise statement. So that's why these are put in square brackets. Whenever you get a square bracket, it is nothing but called as optional. So first you write one exception, then give a comma and mention the second type of exception. So again one more one you want to do, again separate them with another comma and give another exception. So in that way, any number of exceptions you can raise and throw them. But depending on the number of exceptions you are raising here, the number of except blocks also must be defined after the try block. If you are using, say for example, two exceptions here, separating them with a comma in this raise keyword, then after the try block you must create corresponding two except blocks in the same order, right? And exception is the name of the exception to be raised. So look at here, you are able to find args, and then another one called traceback. So you are separating them with a traceback. Args is optional and specifies a value for the exception argument. If args is not specified, then the exception argument is none. So this is optional. You need not give it, right? You need not give it. This traceback is also optional. Both are optional. So what is the purpose of args? You can specify a value for the exception argument. Okay. Then traceback is also optional if present is the traceback object used for the exception. So it is just like an object. Even args is also just like an object also. So it is not, they are not mandatory. Only this one is mandatory exception. So what can be this exception? Any type of exception that we have listed in the previous slides. Okay, so this is about exception handling. So now that theoretically we have completed what exception handling and how it works, let us see with example programs. So let me leave the meeting and join back again.